everybody. Welcome to the Sharon and Joe Show. My name is Sharon.
My name is Joe.
Every Monday, we get together to discuss narcissism from both a male and a female perspective. As many of you know, we're in a long-distance relationship, so we usually communicate through text, email, and phone. Once a week, we hit the record button and include you in on our conversation so that all of us can share our experience, strength, and hope together. I release videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on all topics related to narcissism. So if you haven't already, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any videos. We would really appreciate it if you gave the video a thumbs up. It's a free way you can help us out, and definitely don't forget to leave a comment because we want to know what you have to say. So I mentioned at the end of last week's video that we were going to talk about crazy but true stories. As Joe and I were discussing it this week, crazy kind of turned into pathetic, humiliated, depressed, lonely, sad, mortified, all types of bad things rolled up into one. Today's video is going to be for the person. This video is dedicated to somebody tonight. This video is dedicated to somebody who feels that way now. You feel stupid, you feel pathetic, you feel like, what the heck is wrong with me? Why either did I get in a relationship like this, or why am I in a relationship like this? These relationships are nightmares. When you are somebody who is in a relationship with a narcissist, you live in hell. So today, Joe and I are going to talk about some real things that happened to us in our relationships. We were both married to a narcissist for 20 years. So we have all types of stories that we can tell you. Every single thing that we say is true. You are not alone. If you're in this type of relationship, truly. Hear what we have to say and see how you feel at the end of the video. Joe, do you want to go ahead and get us rolling here?
Yeah, let me take a deep breath too and slow it down a notch because this part of me wants to get this over with because it sounds like coming out of my mouth so just sad and insane. But I'll take you back 20 years when I first got sober. I'm a recovered alcoholic and drug addict. I was in a program. God gave me that desire to get sober. I hit my rock bottom. That's how I met my ex. She was in the same kind of program. She was in for different reasons, though. She was in to get the monkeys off her back, like the lawyer and the cops and this and that. So you know what narcissists do at the beginning? They marry you. So I was serious about getting sober and starting my life and learning about spirituality. So she pretended like she was. So we got into this entanglement, I call it. Sometimes they say relationship is just for the sake of it. But we were dating for about 6 or 7 months, and lo and behold, by about month 9, we got pregnant. This was my first son. I was going to be a father. Now, I was a little bit scared, but also, I didn't get sober and want to live a spiritual way of life to run away from any responsibility. So I was actually excited. Well, about month 4 or so into her pregnancy, I caught her smoking crack cocaine. That was the beginning of the nightmare. That was what I thought was going to be a happily ever after fairy tale. Like, hey, I'm getting sober and doing the right thing. That was the beginning of the 20-year entanglement. What was it like for you at the beginning, Sharon?
Well, Joe, I got involved with somebody who I thought was a great guy. I'd actually known him growing up because our parents are friends. So I thought that actually gave me some added security, that he was well put together, he was a go-getter, he was successful in his career, he had a good education. That's what I thought. Well, before we even got married, I ended up with 2 black eyes and a broken nose, and then I later went on and married this person. So that's how the beginning of my relationship was. So obviously, from what you said, the relationship didn't improve. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about some things that happened after you caught your, future wife doing crack cocaine?
Well, I wanted to talk to you too. Like, it's the insanity of being in this entanglement for so long. You had mentioned it before last week, and this week actually we were talking codependency being the crux of the problem. Did you ever happen to look to see, there's all kinds of definitions of codependency, but that's the crux, at least for me, and I know for you too. Did you ever find any kind of simple definition or anything to say about that?
Actually, Joe, thank you. I actually forgot to mention that. Yes. Basically, when you're in a relationship like this, codependence is almost certainly going to be the issue. When you are a codependent and you're involved with a narcissist, you're living in hell. A codependent is somebody who has an unhealthy attachment to a controlling and manipulative person. Basically, you're ride or die. You have committed yourself to the relationship and you're going to stay in the relationship come hell or high water. Now, typically, there's a value or there's a morality attached to it as well. Was that how it was for you, Joe?
Yeah, honey. So for me, like, it stems from my childhood. My father left me and my little brother when I was about 12. And my mother I didn't know all this till later on, much later. My mother I knew she was an alcoholic as I got older, but I didn't know she realized she was a narcissist too. Well, my dad basically abandoned my brother and I, and there was a lot of violence, a lot of mental and emotional abuse attached to that. So when we had my first son, like, I was all in about wanting to have a family and be there for my son. I didn't want him being raised the way that I was. Now in the meantime, my ex at the time graduated from crack cocaine to heroin. And, there's a lot of insane things going on. Basically, it got to the point where my second son was born, and we definitely had to have him. I wanted him. She wanted to have an abortion. I wanted him so that my oldest son would have somebody. It was just a lot of insanity. Just put in the middle, like, use your creativity. I was arrested like 3 times, falsely accused. I remember one time for my ex's birthday, I got up at like 7 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday, which was early for me at the time. I get up much earlier now, but I washed and waxed her car, got her flowers, put it in the car for a surprise, and a letter. I came in the house after working quite a bit on her car. I was hungry. I was eating a plate of food. And here she is bickering with me again, and it got into an argument. I took the bait, and she had told me now a week before my mother took her own life as a result of her disorder, alcoholism, and pills. And she had mentioned something like, well, you're the reason why your mother took her own life anyways. And I threw a plate of food at the wall. I was pissed. I was more mad because I was really hungry and the food was all over the wall. Well, she thought at this time, probably the second time she was called the police, that it would be a great way to just cause commotion. So I'm in handcuffs for domestic violence, which got dropped. That's what I was dealing with. It's almost like pathological, and it's also like it got worse over time. I thought it was going to get better, but I was willing to chase that value that I had, a good intention. You had mentioned before to me, like, there's a saying that the road to hell is paved by good intentions. I was willing to chase that value to the gates of insanity. Despite all of evidence and reality in front of me, it was just got worse and worse. How did it evolve for you, or how did I should say decompose for you as things went on? I wanted to ask you, actually, because you're talking about codependency, like, that was my value, and I chased that. So I was a big part of the problem. Did you have like any kind of like a chosen ideal or an intention that you believed so much despite like what reality was showing you?
Yeah, I did. I just want to say too, though, when you tell me things that have happened, I feel so bad because I know who you are as a person. And then when you say, that it was partly your fault, I get that. I do. I mean, it is like all of us, we stayed and that's on us. But there is a reality to that. It's not as cut and dry. We didn't know, like, the things that you believe, you're believing like, you're believing that your wife is somebody that she is not. I did the exact same thing, despite all evidence right in front of me. I like you, I wanted to have a family. I really, really wanted to have babies. I've always been very maternal. I got pregnant very soon after we got married. I was so excited to have a baby. I got pregnant right away. And, I wanted to be a mom. I wanted to be a good mom. It was so important to me. I found out later that he never even wanted kids. So later in the marriage, I wanted to have another baby and I could not get pregnant. For me to tell you that I was depressed is an understatement. I needed this person. I needed my husband at the time to help me. So this is what my wonderful husband, who used to beat me up, did when I couldn't get pregnant. He used to go into, I was depressed and I would be in bed crying. I was so upset. And then I was on fertility drugs on top of that, which made me even more emotional. He used to go into our daughter's room, who was a toddler at the time, and he would start speaking on the baby monitor. Why aren't I good enough for you? Mommy, Mommy, why don't you love me? Why do you need to have another baby? So again, Joe, I went through this hell with this man and I stayed. I stayed in the relationship. Now, I know you people listening can't know this, but this is not the first take we've done of this video. We had to stop a little while ago because I was telling this exact same story and I got so upset that we had to stop. The reality is I feel like a complete idiot for staying in the relationship with somebody who was so horrifically abusive. I needed my husband at that time. I was incredibly depressed. I couldn't get pregnant. It was horrible.
Well, don't feel so bad. I think about it was probably about 8 or 9 years ago that now keep in mind, like through these gaps and these little examples, we have a million, you guys. But I think about it was 8 or 9 years ago that I saw some guy's picture on my wife at the time cell phone, and I was just wondering, I later found out that she was having an affair with some guy up at work. Well, in order to get me out of the picture, what had happened is one night I found it and I called her on it. And I got upset I was leaving. She was like, no, I'll explain it to you. Just stay here tonight. Well, the next morning I woke up, went to work. Now, this is a job that, I'm a manager at. And my friend comes to me at my office and says, hey, Joe, the police are here. They didn't let him come in because they didn't want to embarrass me. But I was basically handcuffed outside of my employer's building. And I had asked the police, I was like, well, what the hell's going on? They said, well, your wife went to work and she told her HR that you had threatened her and this and that. So I get arrested up at work. I get a restraining order. Now, in the meantime, the whole purpose of the restraining order was to keep me away so that she could have an affair with this guy and take my two boys at the time. They were probably about 12 and 8, drop them off at her friend's house that was a drug addict, so she and this other guy could go out to casinos and go to hotels. And I remember not eating for 2 weeks, and somehow she talked me into it. Like I was emotionally and mentally abusive, and I wasn't a good husband or a good father. So when you say things like that, Sharon, don't feel so alone. You told me about the silent treatments that you used to give, and my ex did this too, all kinds of gaslighting, manipulation. And I know like there's been a week or so that we wouldn't talk to each other a while. Talk to me about that, because I was really shocked when you told me how long. I was like, holy crap.
Yeah, my ex started to give me silent treatments. This is one of his preferred methods of abuse. So he started to give me silent treatments early in the relationship. We were still dating. As we went further into the relationship, it got worse and worse. And this culminated into a 7-month, yes, month silent treatment at one point. And now this 7 months was the longest he gave me a silent treatment for, but there were other times. The last couple of years of my relationship, it was almost nonstop silent treatments. It would be months at a time, and then it would be broken up by like a week or so, and he'd go right back into another silent treatment.
Didn't he give you the silent treatment one time because you basically called him on racking up about $100,000 worth of credit card debt? So because you called him on it and held him responsible, that's how he acted.
Well, this is the thing. I was married for almost 20 years. I know what I'm about to say sounds like unbelievable, but this is very true. I cannot remember one time in my relationship where my ex actually got mad at me for something other than me being upset with him, lying to me, racking up credit cards, driving drunk with the kids, this type of thing. So that's exactly what happened. He charged up $100,000 in credit card debt. $100,000. I was so upset. instead of, well, I was going to say instead, what's he going to do? He obviously had no problem doing this, that he wasn't going to be able to say, someone stole the credit card. He did it. But he decided a good idea is just to not talk to me at all. Just pretend, put his fingers in his ears, pretend this didn't happen. $100,000. And then he stopped talking to me. Joe.
Yeah, and you know what? You told me like his background, like his parents are wealthy. Like whatever he wanted, buy me a car for my birthday, and it's just you're dealing with a spoiled little brat. I think the final time, Sharon, for me, and we'll just kind of, for the sake of the video, and not to keep people hanging. So this last time, about a year and a half ago, what she decided to do was go in my wallet, take a picture of my bank card, and go out with their friends and charge about $8,000 worth of merchandise, which they could sell for drugs. Then I looked at my account that weekend. I was like, holy crap, I didn't know. Somebody stole my credit card, and I was calling Chase Bank, and they were like, yeah, we can reimburse you, and we'll find this person, press charges. Well, my wife at the time overheard, had told me what had happened and begged and pleaded that she was going to get help and go to treatment. And just to call and drop the charges. So there's 8 to 10 grand out of my account. I'm down, and it's never going to be replaced. Well, guess what? Because I forgave her, the next week she decided to do it again. This whole time, because I'm in recovery from drugs and alcohol, I'm thinking that, she's just sick, she's an addict. Now, there was some periods of sobriety there, nothing too substantial. I had no idea, though, narcissistic personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder, dissociative personality disorder, like morbid reflection. And it's just, I had no idea. I just had, it was just insane. So last year, we decided to get a disillusionment. It was agreed upon amount. You get this, I get that. I gave her what she wanted. It was signed and notarized by a lawyer. Still in court. Well, she reneged. They had the lawyer withdraw. About 9 months ago, she came by my house and stole the car. I couldn't have her arrested because, we were still married, so technically they couldn't. That's the insanity that I was dealing with. Usually, I thought she was bipolar, maybe just, depressed. I had no idea the comorbid issues that she had, multi-level. That's kind of like what happened at the end. What was it like for you at the end, Sharon?
Geez, at the end, honey, the end of my relationship really started. It was like a 3-month ending period. It began when I was woken up by the police because my wonderful ex was outside of my house, right outside of the house, with a loaded gun with multiple clips, passed out, dead drunk. I guess it was a neighbor or somebody saw him, called the police, and they carted him off to a mental hospital. Now, I don't know if I've told you this story before, Joe. So they carted him off to a mental hospital, and they didn't. The first day he went to the emergency room. From the emergency room, he went to the mental hospital.
How did that happen? He had a freaking loaded gun in a car with multiple. This was the time that he had the loaded gun, right? He had
Yeah. Oh, I'm wild about this now. Yeah, they felt bad for him. Like, this is the thing. The police told me. This is the thing that happened. I'm dead asleep in my house. Doorbell ringing, banging on my door. Just picture being woken up that way. It was horrifying. And I knew right away it was something to do with my ex. So I walk up to the door, and the policeman stand there holding a gun. And he's like, oh, so it was my ex's gun. And the policeman said to me, oh, your husband had a firearm. And I was so confused, actually, when he said that to me. I actually thought he said my ex started a fire. And so I was telling the cop, I'm like, what? My husband started a fire? And he's like, no, he has a firearm. And so he had the gun, he handed it to me. And then he handed me the clip with it. And he's like, oh, I think he was depressed, or he thought that my ex was contemplating taking his life.
Wait, time out. With a loaded gun and another clip, not even taking into account for the last couple of months, he stopped paying the bills. He was intoxicated out of your house. He was going to use that whole clip on himself. He was going to shoot him in the leg and then the arm and the foot.
Well, this is the thing. Yeah, so he had a clip. So he had a clip of 10 bullets. The cop gave me that clip, and he gave me the gun. Then they took my ex off to the hospital, and the cop asked me if we could search his car together. So I said yes. So I went out with him to the car, and when we went to the car, we found multiple other clips. I can't remember now how many more. It was like 3 or 4 more. So he had with him like 30 to 50 bullets, say. He had a ton of bullets in the car for this person that was contemplating ending their life, right? You need that many. There were vodka bottles all over the car. They told me that they really thought that he needed help because he was depressed. I knew that was not the case at all. He never said it. He just agreed with them. He was so belligerent. I'll get into the bills in a second. I just wanted to say I had this this is what I want to tell you. When I went to the emergency room, I was waiting in the waiting room. It was in the middle of the night. It was like 2 in the morning. I was the only person there. I live in New Hampshire, so I'm not like in a big city or anything. I was the only person in the waiting room. On the TV was this special on Chris Watts. And when I think about it now, it just strikes me as, I don't know, like a sign from God, maybe, like, here, hello, Sharon, wake up. And I found out later, after he came home from the mental hospital, that he had stopped paying all bills. And I had no idea. I had no idea he wasn't paying any bills. He was paying nothing, not one thing. And on top of that, even a few months ago, when I was looking around for his social security number because I had tried to file for divorce, I found this file in his desk, and in it were these credit scores. So he was running credit scores on himself. He was like documenting himself falling apart. He was running credit scores on himself every month. We split up in December of 2019. He was running credit card checks beginning in August. So they went from good to poor. They got worse and worse and worse. So he knew exactly what he was doing this entire time. And I really believe that my kids and I were in danger with the way that he was falling apart.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, because it's funny about that, and I just wanted to bring this up. Just about 3 hours ago, I looked at my account. Now, remember, I'm a single dad. I got kids, cats, dog, my mother-in-law living with us. I don't have time for much. I just tunnel vision, work, pay the mortgage. And I just started, like, recently for the last about 9 months or so, started bouncing back and getting involved with more things. But I looked at my account, and there was about $1,900 worth of miscellaneous stuff that was being charged. And what I believe happened is when my wife stole my bank card, her and her quote unquote friends, they used it, they wrote it down, and I think what was happening is one of her friends, whatever, had that number and started charging stuff. So even like you said recently, when you found that file, it was the same thing with me. And I told you, like, it was just done and over. Didn't he try? He tried to get you arrested too, huh? This is like, I don't know, man. I hear so many stories of narcissists like trying to. It's horrific. I mean, for a guy, it's worse. But it's just was that the time when you were like, this is done?
That was the last day that we were together. Yep. He tried to get me arrested for domestic violence. Now I'll tell you something. I've never hurt anybody in my entire life. If I wanted to hurt my ex, there's a huge size difference between us. I wouldn't have been able to do what he accused me of. Thank God, because I know, Joe, for you, I know you didn't abuse your wife. However, like it's easier for a man to be arrested. If I had accused him of domestic violence, he probably would have been arrested. I'm so much smaller than my ex, so the police didn't believe it from the beginning. I did do one crucial thing though, and I would never advocate that people lie to the police, but I'm just going to say something that I did tell the police. They told me that they didn't arrest me because, well, for a couple of reasons, I'll tell you. He was giving me another silent treatment, and I lost it on him. And when I lost it on him, I was yelling at him. I kicked him out of the house first off. I told him he had to go. He had to leave. And of course, he's giving me a silent treatment, so he just started packing his stuff to leave. And something broke in me. I went off on him. And at one point, I grabbed his arm, and I was trying to make him face me, and he was just shrugging me off. But he told the police about this, and then the police said to me, well, were you at some point pulling his arm? And I said, yes, I was. I didn't think that was domestic violence. The cop said to me, technically that's domestic violence. You're not allowed to touch anybody else. However,
what the hell, man? So if you hold hands with your significant other, I mean, this dude's what, 6'3", 280 pounds, and here you are, little you.
Yes. Well, yes. But according to the police, yeah, you can't touch anybody else. So they were going to arrest me. Well, see, actually, let me just backtrack for a second. But he also told the police he was bleeding when the paramedics came because he had hit his own head on a wall over and over and over. He was banging his head on the wall. And he accused me of doing it. But he told the police that I physically lifted him and threw him into a wall. Not only that, but I did this with one hand because when I called 911, I was talking on the phone and he's screaming in the background at that. He was yelling, "Mommy's hitting me, mommy's hurting me." He's yelling this. So apparently so Joe, you might not know this about me, so you should be careful. With one hand, I can lift up an almost 300-pound man and slam them into the wall. That's what that's what he accused me of.
Even the cops were cool enough to be like, listen, he's full of crap. But then social services gets involved and, all this happy horse crap. And while we're talking, Sharon, about this, it's like, I think to myself, what the hell is wrong with me, man? When you told me about like the silent treatment, I was like, yeah, I had that before. And you were like, for 7 months, I was like, holy crap. And I was thinking to myself, because I know who you are today, I'm thinking like, what the hell was she thinking, man? She's so much better. But then I think about all the times that my ex cheated on me and stole money from me. And it's like, it's humbling in a way. Sharon, it was like we were going to do the topic on crazy but true. And it is, but it hurts sometimes to think that I allowed that to happen to myself. And you said it, like the crux of the problem, the codependency, and the work that it takes to address that, to learn how to love and respect yourself. Now, I wasn't all low self-worth and low self-esteem when I started, but the little that I had, I just let it go. Like I did not guard it the way you should guard your heart. I don't know if it was like that for you because you had a career, like you had a graduate degree as high up as you can get, PhD, and like you gave all that up for this idea that you had, which was good. And then look at where it led us.
It's horrible, Joe. When you sit here and you think about it, it's absolutely mortifying. A saving grace really for us has been finding each other and having a relationship. And the difference between having a good relationship and a bad relationship. I don't know. Do you notice that? Because I do. When I think about our relationship compared to how it was when I was with my ex, I can't. It's oh my God, it makes me sick. Does that happen to you?
Yeah, it's the same with me. Thank God I spent like lots of time like working on myself and doing the inner work that it takes to look at my part, to look at why, to understand, it took me a long time. Like the biggest forgiveness I had to have was, eventually, and everybody's at a different space in time. I had to forgive the narcissist, but I'll tell you what, my crux was, it took me a long time for my heart to, forgive my mind. Like, I don't know how to say it. It's like it took a long time, I guess, for my brain to make amends to my heart for the decisions that it made. The great part is that I wasn't looking for anybody else. Like I was learning to be good with me. The relationship that I built was one with God. My faith is Christianity, and I believe in Jesus. I was working on that with myself, and eventually, I don't know. It was just one of those things where we connected, and it's night and day. It's different. I don't get it. Like, I accept it though. I accept the gift and I cherish it.
I actually saw this great quote, and I think it's really fitting here and a good way to end the video. When you're in a relationship like this, when you're in a relationship with a narcissist, and because he's right, Joe, like your self-esteem, you might start off with self-esteem, but somehow it just goes away, and this is a whole other video, and we've made other videos on this, but I do think there is something to say with possession and demonic influence. But at the end of the day, to sum it up nice and neat, self-love is the greatest narcissist repellent. That's really what it is. if you can hang on to your own value, if you know your own worth from the very beginning, you won't end up in a relationship like this. And I think that's what has happened in our relationship. You know, we've gone through the work, we've gone through the healing. So we're both in relationships as healthy people. There was something wrong with us before. You know, we got involved with somebody who didn't have our best interests at heart. And we had this value that we were willing to ride until the absolute gates of hell. But the good news is that for anybody in a relationship like this, whether you are or you were, I just want to tell you, because I didn't think about this before, and I think this is so important to know, you can love again. You can trust again. Being in a relationship like this does not mean that the rest of your life is ruined. I really thought that that was going to be the case. Truly, it isn't. You have to hold on to who you are as a person. And once you're able to do that, you will not attract the wrong person, and you will be able to have the life that you want. Whether you were married for 1 month, 5 years, or 20 years, like Joe and I, there's life after narcissism. Joe,
You said it.
I was going to ask, do you want to say anything else? I guess not.
No, it's just one thing for anybody out there that feels foolish, that is just thinks to themselves that there's what the hell is wrong with them? You're not alone. And absolutely, like, we need to look at the codependency, the low self-worth that we had. I mean, those are things that we can change. We can't change anybody else with a narcissist. But as soon as I address that and work my tail off at it, you can't find a solution if you can't admit the problem was. And for me, thank God, the pain was so great. It was a catalyst for change, and I had to look inward to see what was going on. And and here I am today. So the bottom line is, like, and there was a whole bunch of other crap that happened, you guys, but if I could do it, if Sharon can do it, anybody can do it.
There you go. All right. Thank you, Joe, for joining us, and thank you for watching and listening. Joe will be back with us next Monday, and I will see you all on Wednesday. I hope everybody enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you on Wednesday. Good night, everybody.